So the HIMARS rocket launchers that the United States has sent to Ukraine have been incredibly effective against Russians. So the question is, why aren't we sending more faster? Let's talk about it in today's video. Hi, I'm Mike Greiner. I'm a lifelong Democratic activist who's concerned about the direction our country is taking. I'm also a lawyer and an academic, and I'm here to help you stand up to the BS of the MAGA crowd. So HIMARS stands for High Mobility Artillery Rocket Systems, and the thing that distinguishes them is that they're little more than basically a truck. What makes them significant, though, is that there are these pods with 6 missiles in each of them that can easily be loaded onto the backs of these trucks. These trucks, which can drive at up to 60 miles an hour, can simply pull off on the side of any road and launch these 6 missiles, hitting targets anywhere from 50 to 190 miles away. And then just as fast as the truck pulled off on the side, it can pull back onto the road and get going at 60 miles an hour again. Now, this has been extremely frustrating to the Russians, who've had ammunition depots blown up, headquarters blown up, and even a bridge destroyed by these systems. They've caused a major problem for the Russians, who've had to pull back a lot of their logistics, which, as we know from the initial Battle of Kyiv, their logistics aren't so great to start with. And the result has been a dramatic reduction in the artillery strikes from the Russians against the Ukrainians. What distinguishes these systems, by the way, is how accurate they are. I'm sure we've all seen the pictures of the Russian systems that will fire off a bunch of rockets, one right after another. Those rockets, though, are basically just dumb artillery that gets sent over and you hope it hits somewhere that you want it to. The attitude is, if you fire enough of it, eventually you'll hit something. Now, as it turns out, the Russians have a lot of them. And estimates I've seen say that they have enough artillery shells and rockets that they can keep firing at the rate that they've been firing at well into next spring. But HIMARS, that's a whole different can of worms there. You see, in addition to being able to shoot and scoot, as they call it, which means shoot off the missiles and then drive away very quickly so that the Russians aren't able to find it to destroy it, the missiles are incredibly easy to load, coming, as I say, in packets of 6. And there's literally a crane on the back of the HIMARS truck that picks up this packet of missiles and puts it on the back of the truck. I've read that they can load the missiles in as little as 5 minutes. So the only limiting factor to this is the fact that these packets of missiles weigh about 2.5 tons. And you don't want the Russians to see some huge trucks going across the Ukrainian countryside, because they'd figure out pretty quickly that that's where those missiles are. But more than that, these missiles are incredibly accurate. Rather than having to fire off a whole slew of missiles hoping to hit something, these missiles, which are guided by GPS, are able to hit their target within a couple of feet, delivering a payload of as much as 200 pounds of explosives. It's akin to having a major airstrike fall right on your head. That's why they've been able to shoot these HIMARS and literally blow up ammunition dumps, destroy airports, destroy headquarters of the Russian army, and blow up an important bridge that has been used to resupply the Russian forces in the south of the country. The irony is we're not even sending them our best stuff. The missiles that are being sent, which have a range of 50 miles, are actually the shorter range version of these missiles. President Biden has expressed concern over sending missiles to Ukraine with the range that they could actually hit Russian territory. He, of course, is very cautious about the potential escalation that could come, especially given the fact that the Russians still have a lot of nuclear weapons. And Vladimir Putin has indicated he's not afraid to use them. Now, the Ukrainians love these weapons. It's been said by some analysts that there have basically been 3 phases of the war. The first one is when the Russians were trying to invade Kyiv, which, of course, the Ukrainians completely destroyed them with. The second phase is this most recent phase, when they were basically using a moving artillery barrage to try to take portions of the Donbass region in the east. And now, the third phase of this war is after the Ukrainians started getting the HIMARS weapons. Not surprisingly, they've been called game-changing weapons, and the Ukrainians are saying, send us more, send us more. The United States has somewhere around 500 of the systems on hand. And the Ukrainians have said that with 100 of them, they could mount a serious counteroffensive. While on our side, we've been able to estimate that a better number would be 60 of them. That being said, thus far, we've only sent 12 with 4 more on the way. So why so few? Why aren't we just sending more so that they can push back those Russians? After all, we've got plenty of them, right? Well, there are 2 problems with that. Number one, these are sophisticated weapons systems. This is not the type of thing that you can just take some soldier off the street and teach them to load the weapon and shoot it. American soldiers, when they're trained to use this, spend as much as 3 months in training. They've been able to shorten the training length for the Ukrainians, but still you're talking a month or more of training for somebody to be fully qualified to be able to operate the system. At this point, it appears about 200 Ukrainian soldiers have been trained. So you can see they can only absorb so many of these systems anyway. We don't want to send them these systems and then just have them sitting there. The second problem is the ammunition, the rockets themselves. As I said earlier, the HIMARS system itself is not particularly impressive. It's just basically a truck with a crane on the back. What makes it impressive is the fact that they can mount these pods of missiles on the back of it. Now, the total number of missiles that the United States has is a closely guarded secret, as you can imagine. But in prior years, we've acquired anywhere from 5,000 to 9,000 of them, although that number has been going down more recently. Now, that may sound like a lot of missiles, and it is, but you have to understand, at the pace that the Ukrainian war is going, they'd go through that relatively quickly. In fact, it's been estimated that with just the 16 HIMARS systems that have already been sent to Ukraine, the Ukrainians would be able to use the entire production of the GLMRS missiles for a year in just over 20 days. And in fact, they'd use the entire stockpile, at least the estimated stockpile, of these missiles in as few as 200 days, which, the way this war has been going, could happen. And remember, that's just with the 16 they've already got. So if we were to send them as more as 44 more of the HIMARS systems, they could be running out of the missiles in a month or 2. I think that President Biden and Secretary Austin have been very wise about being concerned how quickly they're sending these weapon systems over to Ukraine. Given the limitations that we have, obviously we want to make sure we still have the ability to defend ourselves, the training requirements of these systems and the ammunition requirements of these systems, with each missile, by the way, costing over $100,000, you can see that this is probably a wise strategy. It's clear that the Ukrainians have been making good use of these weapons. As I said earlier, there's substantial evidence that the Russian assault has been seriously hurt, and that the level of artillery strikes coming from the Russian side have been reduced dramatically. In fact, it's clear that a big part of the motive for Vladimir Putin to go to Iran was that he wanted to get access to certain drones that he could use to try to track these HIMARS systems. And there's substantial evidence coming out of Russia that the Russian military is very worried about these systems. All of that is building upon the fact that the losses that the Russians have been incurring really are unsustainable, prompting the UK's intelligence chief to state on the record that he thinks Russia is running out of steam soon in their Ukrainian invasion. That's exactly the reason that from the beginning, I've been cautiously optimistic that the Ukrainians are going to be able to prevail in this battle. Well, if you want to find out more about what's going on in Ukraine, check out this video over here, where I talk about the fact that Russia is unable to continue fighting at the pace that it's been. I'll see you then. In the meantime, let's hope for continued progress. Thank you.